What's up, guys? Gio here. So today I will be talking about living alone versus living at home. A lot of you guys have been asking me what I would do in your situation if I would, live with my parents, given these circumstances, or live alone. And I'm here today to give you the pros and cons of living alone versus living at home. I know that at times parents could get on your nerves, with their constant nagging about things that you're always doing wrong, and you probably live with like really annoying siblings that just don't understand the concept of don't touch my shit. So here is Big Sister Gio again to tell you about, all the annoyances that I described earlier. How it would just sound so heavenly to just get rid of them and just to live on your own and not have to worry about that. But the flip side to that is there's always a price for everything. So have no fear. I am here to help you guys out in terms of how to weigh the pros and cons. Maybe you feel like you need to move out, but maybe in actuality you really don't need to move out because you really have it really good. So today I will be sharing my personal experience of what I went through when I moved out and how I dealt with everything. And I'm gonna tell you the good and the bad about both living alone and living at home. Me personally, I always want to hear the bad news first, just so that I can brace myself and it just punches me really quickly, and then I have time to recover with the good news, and I'm like, okay, cool, okay, everything is good again. First, I'm gonna list all the bad things about living at home. So first of all is just the parents with the rules and the guidelines and the chores and do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, why did you do this, why did you do that, what were you thinking type of thing. That's the bad about living at home. Also, if you have to share a room or living space with your siblings, younger siblings, older siblings, you never really feel like you have a sense of your own space, or you don't have your own privacy. It's just an invasion of space, so you always feel like you want to crawl into a really quiet cave and not be interrupted by anybody. Also, you might have annoying relatives who are constantly up in your business, giving you way too much information of stuff you don't really want to hear. Also, living at home doesn't really teach you the sense of, doesn't really show you the value of money, because you're constantly depending on parents and other relatives that will support you financially. So that's ultimately a bad thing, because we all gotta grow up sometime and we all need to know the value of things. So I think that's a very important bad thing. Those are just the bads that I could think of that I went through when I was debating whether I should live home or not. Now that I have moved out, I see all the bad things about living on my own, and now I will list all the bad things about living on your own. When I first moved out, I moved out with roommates because I really couldn't afford living alone, so I had to get roommates. And I had a house with 3 other females, 3 roommates, and I still didn't really get that privacy that I needed and that I wanted. So that's always a bad thing. Also, depending on how far away you move from your parents or your loved ones, certain occasions like holidays, birthdays, different celebrations, just different types of occasions that you would normally share with all these close people, you kind of don't have that anymore, just because they're really far away, or you just don't have enough money because you have to kind of save up for rent. So that's another bad thing. Also, if you're not, recently I moved out on my own, so I don't really have roommates anymore, but if you live alone, sometimes it can kind of get a little too quiet and you're just like, holy crap, I need some people walking around, because the house that I came from, there was always people there were always footsteps, always people around, so it kind of the ambiance was always very alive. But then when I lived on my own, it was just very opposite, and I'm like, okay, this is cool, I get my privacy, I get my own time, I could walk around butt-ass naked if I want to, but damn, it's really dead out here. So it can kind of get a little bit, not depressing, but it can just kind of get a little bit lonely. Also, when I would come home from work or school and I lived at my parents' house, I always had a home-cooked meal. So I never really had to worry about, buying food or buying ingredients, condiments, spices. So I would just come home and just eat. But now that I live on my own, if I have enough time, I will cook something for myself, but I just kind of come home to a dark, empty house. It doesn't really, the air doesn't really smell like food, and you know, if I want to cook a delicious dinner, then I have to, you know, look into my budget and make sure that I have enough money to buy, you know, pasta, eggs, water, filtered water, ketchup, you know, salt, pepper, like all these different things that we kind of take for granted in our parents' house. It's like, hey, guess what, buddy? When you rent a place, it doesn't come furnished and it doesn't come with all these ingredients. So guess what you gotta do? You gotta go out and buy all that on your own. So that's another downside of living on your own. It's just constantly having to dish out money out of pocket to support your habits or support yourself. Also, what I've noticed about living alone, or just living away from my parents' house, is when I was at home living with my parents, it felt like a home. It felt very warm, it felt very cozy. But this place that I'm renting now, it's just a temporary place for me to live. So I don't really have the ability, or I don't have like the privilege of just decorating it the way I want to, you know, having the furniture that I want to, just because, you know, whether it's budget or just rules that, you know, the manager of that apartment or that place that I'm renting has. Sometimes they won't let you paint walls, sometimes they won't let you have the curtain that you want. So you kind of also have to follow a complete stranger's rules, so that can also make it feel less of a home, if that makes any sense. So you don't have that home feeling, you know, you have a feeling of, cool, like I have somewhere where I chill that no one can tell me anything, but you really never have that sense of home. And finally, the bad thing about living alone is you really have to learn how to budget. So you have to learn how to budget, you know, money for rent, money for utilities, money for, you know, your car, money for insurance. There's just different types of bills that you need to, you know, start paying on your own, whether you have a school loan, if you want to buy, you know, new clothes, just whatever you'll be doing in your life. You just always have to budget. And if you don't really have a stable job, then it's really going to be stressful, because at home, let's say you are paying somewhat of a rent. At home, you have family members, you have a mom, a dad, or whatever, that if you can't pay the rent that month, or you can't contribute to paying whatever towards the household, then they'll be more lenient and they'll be like, okay, well, make sure you have it in, you know, X amount of time. But then if you're living on your own away from, you know, relatives and parents, if you don't have the rent, guess what, buddy? 30-day eviction notice, you know? So it's like, no one really cuts you slack. It's like, hey, they're trying to make a living too, so who's gonna starve, you or them? And guess what? If you don't have it, then it's ultimately going to be you that's starving. So it's also kind of a burden, because you always have to make sure that every single month you have enough money to cover all your expenses.